This is HIITN’50, the fitness and wellness podcast serving the over 50 community. I'm your host, Chris Cotnor. Welcome to episode 4 of the HIITN’50 Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cotnor. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Each week we explore what I consider to be the 4 key areas of maintaining a healthful lifestyle, including exercise, nutrition, sleep, and mental well-being. Before I get started, just a reminder that if you enjoy the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps with discoverability. You can also follow me on X at CCOTNOIR, Facebook at Christopher Cotnor, Instagram at CCOTNOIR, and LinkedIn at Chris Cotnor. And finally, you can subscribe to my companion newsletter at substack.HIITN50.com, substack.HIITN50.com. If you've been reading my newsletter for the past couple of years, you know I'm big on spending some time to define your motivation for health and fitness. Motivation is your reason or reasons for staying healthy, the thing that gets you to work out even when you don't feel like doing it, which was me yesterday. But in my newsletter this week, I wrote about a few things to keep in mind when you're defining your motivation. The first is to set personal goals. I know for the business folks out there, this is probably annoying to hear, but goals should be SMART, meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound where applicable. And whether you're running a 5K, competing in a triathlon, or improving your mental health, clear goals provide a roadmap and help with benchmarks for success. The second thing is finding enjoyment or passion in what you're doing. Exercise is going to suck for you if you're doing something that you hate. So try different things. Try to find something that really motivates you to keep coming back. And the final thing sounds a little, I suppose, wonky, but visualize your success. I think, if you can see yourself at the end of the journey, even though the journey doesn't really end, visualizing your success can help you stay on a path and keep you focused on your goals. I wanted to talk a little bit about my own personal motivation. This is going to sound cliche, but my personal motivation for staying healthy is absolutely for my family. And while that might seem like a no-brainer in terms of a reason for wanting to stay healthy and to lead a healthy lifestyle, for me, it's taken on a bit of a different meaning. During my routine physical this year, I was a little concerned that despite what I considered to be good exercise, eating, and sleeping habits, my cholesterol had been increasing slightly but consistently over the past 3 years, which prompted me to ask my doctor some questions about what could possibly be causing this. And he suggested that I be screened for calcification of my arteries. So essentially, you take a test that's a scan, and they give you a calcium score. When I took that test, I was not expecting what actually came back, but the test revealed that not only did I have some plaque in my arteries, but it also revealed a mild aortic aneurysm. It's not life-threatening at this point. It's also not the size that would require surgery. But all of this information taken together has prompted additional testing, which I'm currently going through and will be going through for the next several weeks to determine what the specific next steps were. And needless to say, this was a pretty sobering discovery, but I was also grateful to my doctor for suggesting the test in the first place. It's a test that was not covered by insurance and luckily wasn't that expensive. But in any case, very grateful that he suggested the test because we've all heard the stories. Perhaps you might even know somebody who was seemingly fit or in shape, didn't necessarily know that they had any type of condition, and they potentially suffer a cardiac event or something worse. It would have been far worse for me not to know and continue to kind of do what I was doing, sort of status quo. But it's allowed me to re-examine everything from my exercise habits to my diet. Though, as you'll hear in my upcoming segment, there's still work to be done. With that out of the way, my first segment this week was a lot of fun. Rebecca Dickinson, a registered nurse and holistic health coach, who's joined for the first several episodes, was joined by Paul Gottsegen, who's a fitness enthusiast who practices an extremely healthy lifestyle. And they joined me for a little game of keep it or toss it. I pulled some items from my pantry to read the ingredients, and they, essentially told me whether I should keep that or toss it. Some of them were obvious. And if you listen to the first episode of this podcast, you'll know that Rebecca discussed her pantry makeover approach with her clients. And this is one of the things that she does. She goes in and reads ingredients from the person's pantry. So give this segment a listen, and I'll be back on the other side. Hi, I'd like to welcome back Rebecca Dickinson. Rebecca is a certified registered nurse and a holistic health coach to the podcast. So welcome back, Rebecca.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
And we have a special guest, somebody who has supported my writing in the past. He is a fitness enthusiast, among other things. He's a way better golfer than I am. Paul Gottsegen is joining today. How are you, Paul?
Not much better. Hey, Chris. Hey, Rebecca.
In the first episode of the HIITN’50 podcast, I talked to Rebecca about items in our pantries. As one of her services to her clients, she will frequently do pantry makeovers and go into people's homes. And, they essentially start with reading ingredients and determining whether to keep or toss certain things. So I asked Paul to kind of join so we can make this a little bit of a game. I have 7 items from my pantry, some of which I eat regularly and some which I don't, though we use from time to time in cooking. So we're gonna have a little fun today. And we're gonna start off really, really easy. So one of the things I like to do is I start off my morning with a bowl of oatmeal. So I have these rolled oats with the ingredients organic whole grain oats.
Perfect.
Paul, do you think those are good for your pantry and your
Sounds good.
nutritional?
That seems like an easy no-brainer starter question. Keep it whole grain, oats, whole food. Good way to start the day.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that brand. That Bob's Red Mill is great.
Perfect. So I feel good about myself right now.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I love that it's organic. Oats are frequently sprayed with glyphosate, and glyphosate can affect it's like Roundup, and it's a pesticide, and it can affect your gut microbiome. So
My
oats,
goodness.
yes, I like oats to be organic.
So that was one question I had. So what does it mean when they say organic?
So it is a certification that these companies have to go through, and it's US, the USDA certifies companies and their practices to be organic, which means that they're free from pesticides. I mean,
So they have to go through, they have to go through, like it has to be certified. So before you can put something on a label, you have to actually have it certified as being organic.
That is correct. Yes. Now, interestingly enough, if you were to shop at your like local farmers market, you can talk to the farmers directly and you can ask how they treat their crops. A lot of times they're making their crops organic, but they don't have the funds to go through the process to have them certified. So I'm a big fan of going to your local farmers market and then actually like talking to the farmers and finding out, how are they treating their crops? Yeah.
Avoiding
that's a great
Roundup
idea.
at all costs, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And Chris, what do you put in your oatmeal just before we get off the oatmeal? And since we're
So,
keeping it, we got to make sure we're really keeping it. I don't know what you put in there.
yeah, so funny you should ask. So my next is I have this
Oh,
bare naked
okay.
granola, and it has nuts in it. But here are the ingredients: whole grain oats, honey, almonds, expeller pressed canola oil, coconut, raisins, dried cranberries, cane sugar, vegetable glycerin, oat bran maple syrup, pecans, walnuts, whole flour, ground flax seeds, toasted sesame seeds. So
I
what do
mean,
we think about this?
so overall it's decent. It sounds like there was 3 different types of sugar added into that granola. What does it say in terms of, I mean, I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, they mentioned sugar or a various form of sugar a few more than one time. How much is actually added to the product that, in terms of grams of sugar, because we need to be concerned about added sugar as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the label says added sugars per serving 10 grams.
Yeah, so it's really high in sugar. 4 grams of sugar is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of sugar. And, the US guidelines state for a woman, you should have no more than 6 added teaspoons of sugar per day. So that's 24 grams total in your day. That's got 10 in one serving, 10
Wow.
grams of sugar in one serving. So that's like 2.5 teaspoons. So of your 6 allotted per day.
I do spend more time at the grocery store, literally in front of the granola choices, because there's like 30 choices. And Rebecca, I'm aligned with you. I'm only looking at the grams of sugar because granola is supposed to be this super healthy thing. Everybody thinks granola is healthy, but we know sugar's not. And I
Mhm.
really do try to avoid the extra sugar. And I found out granola is like Gatorade. It seems healthy until you look at how many grams of sugar. So I go through, I know Bare Naked's one of the ones I avoid because I used to buy that before I knew enough. And I will spend too long looking at each one. I'll find the one that has like 3 grams. And guess what? It doesn't taste as good as probably I need to make it at home, like Rebecca says. But I deal with it. I'll put blueberries in there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And quite frankly, I mean, when you make it at home, you can put whatever mix-ins you want. You can vary it from week to week. You make a big batch of it, it could last you, easily a couple of weeks. You put it in an airtight container. It was when my daughter was at home and, she's in college now. She loved having granola. It mixed in with her yogurt. So we always had it on hand and I would just make a big batch of it. The house smells amazing when it's baking
Ooh,
and it would last
sounds good.
a couple of weeks. We'd vary the mix-ins. You can supercharge it with flaxseed and chia seed, hemp seed, and you can throw in all kinds of nuts and you control the sugar that way. So, I usually would use either a little maple syrup or a little honey, one or the other, not both. And at least it's a sugar source that is close to the source, if you will, with a small amount of nutritive value.
And notice how the label Bare Naked, I know it's like a double meaning, whatever, but like they're naked, they're trying to make it sound like it's, pure, pure as white snow, just by it. The name's trying to fool you right there.
Totally. Marketing tactic right there.
Yeah, those marketers, they're really shady people.
Yes, they're smart.
You,
Okay,
you got
now, hang on.
you got to watch out for them. I'm going to get beat down for this one. So this is a pure protein bar. I've been eating them for a while. And here are the ingredients. Protein blend, mixed protein isolate, whey protein concentrate, hydrolyzed collagen, glycerin, cocoa water. You said in the first episode, if I can't pronounce it, then it's probably not good. Um, I'm gonna just not read the rest of these ingredients. I mean, there's
All things you can't pronounce, correct?
I mean, some of them I can, but there just seems to be too much crap in it to be, good. But it's portable and easy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, okay, now total sugars, added sugars, 2 grams. So sugar alcohols, 4 grams. What's that? Sugar alcohols.
It's just a different form of sugar.
You know what's
But it
tricky
was,
though? This is
yes.
kind of like what Rebecca was saying about the three kinds of sugar in the granola. Years ago, I found a great tasting protein bar that had zero sugar, and it had like this mention of sugar alcohol, but it had a big label, zero sugar. And I was wondering why I didn't feel that great, but it had zero. Then I realized, did a little research. Yeah, sugar alcohol is just trying to fool you. That's sugar.
Mhm. So
Right.
interestingly enough, sugar has over 50 different names. So you really need to be a sleuth when you're reading these ingredients. And if you don't know what something is and you have like a sneaky suspicion that it might be some type of sugar, pull out your phone and Google it and you'll know for sure in 30 seconds if it's actually like maltodextrin. That's a sugar. It's an added sugar.
Hmm.
It's in a lot of products, but you wouldn't think of it that way. Corn syrup solids, that's a sugar. I mean, it's amazing the amount of euphemisms that
Yeah.
exist for sugar in food.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
bought a bunch of protein, but I would toss that one. But you're right. I do eat protein bars. The same play as granola. I look at the sugar. If you go to like a gas station or a convenience store, none of those would qualify for me. But if I go to Whole Foods, like 20% of them the way I try to filter in my mind, I'm looking at low sugar. I'm vegan, so I'm looking at one. Yours has whey protein, so I have to cut out all those. I'm golfing or something, I'll throw one in there because it's better than the chili dog, which is the only thing my golf course has at the turn. So it's always a matter of choices. But you
Mhm.
know what? I never feel wonderful. Even though I select the one that I select and I'm choosy, I don't feel great after I eat it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe one of the better choices, and I don't think this would work for you, Paul, because it's got egg white in it, but it's the RX bar. Um, those are pretty clean. I can't vouch for what they taste like. I personally don't like to consume my protein from a bar. Um, so I can't tell you what it tastes like, but those ingredients usually are pretty whole and pretty real. The protein source is egg white. So, you could give those a try because for convenience sake, it could be easy, but you could also make them yourself. I know, Chris, you and I had talked about those
The
energy
energy
balls.
balls. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and those would work for you, Paul, because those would be vegan. You could make them. I don't know if you eat honey. I know some vegans don't eat honey, but you could make them with
I
maple.
do. No, no, know what? You know what? I eat honey. Let me just show. Okay, I looked up on Amazon. Aloha, like hello, aloha. That's the bar. And I'm looking at the ingredients. Okay, you know what? It's better than what you said. I can pronounce all these: peanuts, tapioca fiber, protein blend, brown rice protein, pumpkin seed protein, chocolate chips, tapioca syrup, vegetable glycerin, roasted pumpkin seeds, sea salt, monk fruit, organic, contains peanuts. So I could say all those.
Mhm.
So I am choosy. Aloha is an example of one that, makes it through my filter. I
Yeah.
keep that.
I mean,
Um,
I still am like one of those people who thinks that protein should come from what we think of protein coming from. Personally, any of those protein powders do not agree with my system. So when they add them to a bar or a shake or whatever, my body does not like it. So I steer clear completely. I mean, Paul, you wouldn't eat eggs, but I mean, I'd rather have a couple of hard boiled eggs on the go, quite honestly, if I felt like I needed some
I
protein.
miss those. I snuck in a deviled egg the other day. My mother-in-law made it. I couldn't help myself. Don't tell anybody.
I
You got to edit that out.
so the next one is this classic Alfredo sauce. So Jack is a swimmer, of course, and he will eat dinner. And then I usually will come down in the morning to make my coffee, and second dinner had been made, and it's generally some pasta. He'll use Alfredo sauce, or sometimes he'll use regular marinara sauce. Like one of the ingredients here is titanium dioxide.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I feel like that's maybe some type of preservative. I'd have to look it up. I don't think it sounds good.
No, water, canola oil, Parmesan cheese, milk and cheese cultures, salt enzymes, natural flavors. That's shady to me. Cream, carrageen, butter, tapioca starch. Oh, this one's a great one. God, I can't even. Nile to a dextrin whey. Anyway, we're gonna make the cauliflower Alfredo sauce. I think.
Yeah,
You know
and
what? I
uh,
just think,
go ahead, Paul.
Rebecca, Rebecca, you were talking about Frankenfoods last week. Like, even though I would never touch that Alfredo sauce for me, it doesn't sound healthy. It doesn't sound like an ultra processed food either in some ways. I mean, it had a lot of natural ingredients, even that's natural flavors versus artificial flavors. I mean, it's not a complete disaster. It might clog the arteries, but aside from the titanium dioxide, which sounds really, really weird, everything else I could at least understand.
Personally wouldn't want to put that in my body, but interestingly enough, when they say natural flavors, it's really never natural flavors. It's still some type of processed flavor. When they say natural lemon flavor, they're not actually squeezing a lemon
No.
into the product. So
Yeah, right. Okay,
it's
that
still
makes
something to
sense.
be cautious for. You know what? Like, look at, if I were Jack and I understand that I had a swim or two and they come home and they're hungry. And the second dinner is definitely something they oftentimes need. The marinara sauce, there's some great ones on the market that are super clean,
Yeah.
without sugar added. I mean, go that route, or just make a sauce. Like you could throw some sort of protein source into the marinara. Use the jarred marinara. I love Rayo's. I think it's
Yeah, we
great.
do too.
Really
Yeah,
great.
that has like 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and even if you have a sensitive stomach, they also make a sensitive stomach marinara, which is great. And throw in like some ground turkey or something into that. There you go. There's his protein right there,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Marinara all the way. And by the way, I think from what I understand, if they say artificial flavor, it was made probably in New Jersey, 100% in a lab, 100% chemicals that smell like lemon. And to Rebecca's point, if it says natural flavors, it means somewhere up the chain there was, a little bit of a real lemon somewhere along the way. And so they're able to say, natural flavors versus 100% just chemists with molecules in New Jersey in a lab creating something that smells like something we know.
I'm gonna do just one more because we, in the interest of time. So this is a box of Crispix. It was we I think we bought it because a recipe called for it. There's like rice, milled corn, sugar, contains 2% or less of salt, molasses, brown rice syrup, baking soda, turmeric extract, color, and then it has added vitamins. Added
Everything
sugars
does.
in this particular case, 5 grams.
Toss.
I mean, that's definitely a toss. I mean, there's no nutritive value in that cereal whatsoever.
No.
I don't even think it has a single gram of fiber.
Right.
I quickly looked up the ingredients on that one right before we met, and you can do better for cereal. Obviously, if you needed it for a recipe, maybe that was the only reason you bought it. But I'd be looking for something else to sub into that recipe.
Yeah,
Go back to the bare naked if you have to. Toss that.
well, this box of cereal has been in my pantry for quite some time. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean,
It's expired.
What's interesting with cereal is, you go down that cereal aisle and there has got to be hundreds of cereals, and you're hard pressed to find one that is actually good for you.
I mean, when I was a kid, when they used to have
Grape
television
nuts.
commercials, I mean, all these types of Cookie Crisp cereal. I mean, they came up with, and they're directly marketing to kids because they're doing these ads during cartoons.
Frosted Lucky Charms.
Yeah, and then the tired parent goes to the grocery store and is like, "All right, whatever you want. Like, just please be quiet. Here's some Lucky Charms, Frosted freaking mini wheats,
Yeah.
Crunch Berry cereal. I mean,
God,
there's
the list goes on.
hundreds of them. Sorry.
When we were kids, it was assumed that these companies must have our best interests in mind. I mean, they're companies and we're people, and they must care about us, and they don't. They not to go. I mean, they want the profit margins and whatever they can get away with. And if you care about your health, don't trust any of these companies. Look at the ingredients and start there. Yeah, it's a good way to start.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, Cheerios is probably only maybe 2, 3 ingredients, and it is whole grain. But the interesting thing with Cheerios, again, is they use the glyphosate on the wheat plant. And so, my son does like Cheerios, and inherently I don't have a problem with it as a cereal, but I buy him like the 365 Whole Foods organic. They don't call them Cheerios, but whatever they call them, it's a Cheerio. And at least I know that he's not getting the side of pesticide, with his bowl of cereal.
Yeah, I like to drink a
Same.
glass of pesticide with my with my breakfast every morning, which
Yummy.
apparently we'd be doing if we ate some of this stuff. Well, Paul and Rebecca, thank you guys so much for joining today. It was a lot of fun. I got some work to do in my pantry, but nonetheless, I appreciate the advice and hope to see you guys back on another episode. So thanks for joining.
Thanks. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Chris.
Keep eating that oatmeal. That's the only one we kept.
Paul and Rebecca gave me a lot to think about in terms of my choices, and from now on, whenever possible, I'll be making more of these items from scratch. My next guest is Linda Magid, who is a certified Pilates instructor, and she and I spent some time discussing her tactics for motivating her classes. She also shares a story about that time when one of the participants of her class flipped her off and abruptly left. I guess they weren't particularly motivated. I'd like to welcome back Linda Magid to the podcast. Linda is a certified Pilates instructor, both group and individual. So welcome back, Linda.
Thanks so much.
I wrote this week in my HIITN’50 newsletter about motivation. And earlier today, I had a conversation with Christine Boyer-Zazzaro about some of her success stories. But I wanted to specifically talk to you about motivational tactics. So, when I think about motivation, I think about, the why, the sort of, the overall arching theme of, why I choose to work out. But I wanted to ask you, just to kick this off with, what specifically motivates you? Specific to fitness, we'll stick to fitness.
Okay, sounds good. What motivates me personally is first being able to manage my asthma. I have exercise asthma, which means that it only really comes around when I exercise, as opposed to living my everyday life and being concerned I'm going to have an asthma attack. I do have an inhaler. I have a rescue inhaler. I have daily medication that I take. And I exercise in part because I want to have strong lungs for the rest of my life. And if I'm not exercising, then I'm really not exercising my lungs, and the asthma could turn into something worse or get worse over time. So that's one reason that I exercise. Another thing that motivates me, especially being over 50, is keeping osteoporosis at bay as much as possible. My mother has it, and it's very common for older women to first have osteopenia, which is sort of the red flags of osteoporosis, and then be diagnosed with osteoporosis. So the workouts that I do, the jumping, because when I dance, I'm kind of a crazy person. So my dancing is a lot off the floor. So jumping, lifting weights, all those things build bones. And I am trying to just stay healthy in that way. Also, exercise staves off cancers. And I did have melanoma. I don't call myself a cancer survivor. I was very lucky. I found it early. I only had to have it removed. I had no radiation or chemotherapy or anything. But that wasn't so much a wake-up call. I was already exercising, but thinking, okay, well, now I have more chances to have cancer. So exercising can keep that at bay. So really it's for long-term living, long-term health. And I see the impact on people as they age, especially when they're more in the senior citizens, in that era of life who didn't exercise. I see the impact on them. And it is huge. One of the things I learned when I was working with seniors at the senior residence is that you can't determine or know what is going to happen to you as you age. There's no way. There's so many problems that can happen as we age, and you can't predict the future even just by exercising. But if you have a healthy body, like strong bones and strong muscles and limbs that work and some flexibility, even when you have physical problems, they won't be as bad as if you don't exercise. You can recover faster, you can respond better. And for me, that's everything.
Motivation is personal to every individual and why they do what they do. Maybe in my younger days, my motivation was more aesthetic, let's say.
Sure.
And I'm way past that.
Well, I'd love to
Nah,
talk about that a little bit because
yeah,
I work a
please.
lot with women. Those are most of the people who come to my classes and who I work with online. And many women are exercising to lose weight, older, younger, doesn't matter. And that's fine. I don't have a lot to say about that because I'm not a weight loss expert. I'm not a nutritionist. I can tell people how to exercise safely. That's my job. I do think that when weight loss is the only goal, once people reach that goal, or they have a hard time reaching that goal, could be an unrealistic goal even, then the motivation decreases very quickly because either they've reached it and they're like, oh, I met my goal weight. Well, now what do I do? Or it's, well, I'm never going to reach that goal. I'm totally discouraged. I'm going to forget about it. And I think that, again, it's not wrong to have that as a goal, but it's good to have it as well as maybe something else, something that is exercise related so that you have kind of in the back of your mind, I want to lose X number of pounds. But the thing I'm working on right now is I'm working on being able to lift a certain amount of weight or be able to run X amount of time on the treadmill or that kind of thing, because otherwise you're weighing yourself every day, which can drive people crazy. Your weight fluctuates every single day. It fluctuates throughout the day. Being so focused on that number can become very suffocating. So have that goal there, but then think about things that are maybe a little bit more accessible.
So when you teach classes, there are lots of individuals in those classes. How do you motivate your class, I guess? And then maybe individually, like maybe somebody's not responding to what you're saying or what you're doing, and they might flip you off. Maybe you can tell that story at the end
Oh, that's a great
of
story. That's one of my
of this.
faves. Yeah.
But yeah, how do you
Okay.
motivate your class, I guess?
So in my classes, one thing is, always tell people, if I give you something to do and that does not work for you, it's not accessible for your body, do something else. Do something else that gets the same body part, a muscle group, or if you don't know what to do, raise your hand. Even if it's a little hand raise, I'll come over, I'll help you. I always try to keep the classes accessible because that's one of the things that I think drives people away from classes, where they come to a class and the instructor is not relating to the class. Like there's 15, 20 individual people with individual abilities in this class. They're like, this is my workout and I want to work out as hard as I want. You guys can come with me or not. That's not a good class because
Hmm.
my job is to take care of the people in there. It's not for me to get a workout. So when I tell people from my mat Pilates class, I say, if I bring my feet over my head, and so I have my head is on the floor and my feet are over my head, and you see that and you say, that I can't do, neck issues, back issues, then we're going to do it 3 times. You can hang out on your mat and just rest, or you could do X or Y movements while you're waiting, because we're going to be done soon. And for me, I think that's motivating for people because they feel safe in the class. There's things they can do. Maybe there's some things that don't work for them, but they're not made to feel badly about those things. I'm always looking for ways to modify. And the other side, like today I taught a class, I had 26 people, and I have ages from 20s to 60s. And so for the younger people, I'm saying to them, okay, we're going to do squats with just weights. This is the time to push yourself. This is the time to lift a little harder, and I'm encouraging them to work harder. So I have kind of both. And I consider it like suggestions. I don't tell people what to do, but I make suggestions, and then they feel like they could do it or not. So it's one thing that I do in my classes to motivate people. I give a lot of compliments. Great job. Looks so good. Hey, I saw you did this thing today that you didn't do last week. That's amazing. I'll go over and talk to people. So I make them feel like it's their individual class, even though they're a room full of people. And then another thing I do is I just try to make people laugh as much as possible. I make stupid jokes, like bad, dumb jokes. But of course, that makes everyone laugh. I make fun of myself. I am not great at push-ups, and my tricep push-ups are shameful. Okay. I just don't have the strength in my arms to do a good tricep push-up, but I had to do one today. Okay. I just show them, you're going to do this tricep push-up, then you're going to do this, you're going to do this. So before I started, I said, I want you to imagine when you see me do this tricep push-up that I'm doing one. Okay. Because if you're really looking at me, it's going to look like I'm not moving. And everyone laughed because they know I'm not that good at them. So I did the best that I could. And I showed them the movement. And then like everyone else in the class just got down to the floor, and I hate them all. But, they all laughed at that. It's okay to laugh at me. I'm the instructor. I have confidence. I'm not worried about looking good in front of people. I mean, not really worried. Sometimes I am. But, they all laugh at me. And that loosens up the class, makes people not feel so serious. And I think that's motivating too.
I like that. So let's end this with, you've been teasing the story, at least to me.
Yeah.
You got to tell me about the
person who flipped me off.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said in the email, it was a guy. It wasn't, it was a woman.
I'm so sorry.
So when I started teaching Zumba, I taught in a place that they took their Zumba too seriously. I mean, people like saved positions. And if you stood in their spot, if you were new and you stood in their spot, they would give you dirty looks. And like, they were so attached to their instructors. And it's like, they couldn't have any other instructors, which is silly. Of course, this person can't ever go on vacation, like give her a break. So I said I would sub for her. The instructor was really good to me, gave me a lot of coaching. I was new. And so I decided that I would do some of her songs because I knew that they liked that music. It's kind of music kind of from people's like teenage years. Of course, it's all in Spanish. It's not from my teenage years, but it's from their teenage years. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll make them happy. But I was doing different dances because I didn't know hers. That was a mistake. I don't know why this happened, but someone walked out and I am facing them. And as she walks out, she looks at me and she flips me the bird, and then turns around and walks out. And this is during class. And I thought, wow, this is not going that well. And so,
wait, because of the music, or why?
Because of music, the dancing, maybe I said something, but I don't know what I would have said. I mean, you can't. I think, did I wear a microphone? I think at that place we wore microphones. Maybe I said something she didn't like. I have no idea. She just flipped me the bird and walked out. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. Like, what am I going to do? Like, sit and cry because she was rude? And so I just kept teaching. And Yeah. Yeah. So I had someone flip me off during class.
Apparently, she wasn't too motivated with
She
your
wasn't too motivated. Yeah.
tactics or music. Well, Linda, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much for taking the time this week, and hope to see you next week. I really enjoy talking to Linda each week. She's incredibly passionate about her work and the folks that she helps through her classes every day, which, by the way, you can see for yourself if you visit her YouTube channel, which I'll link to in the show notes. My final guest this week is Christine Boyer-Zazzaro, a certified personal trainer, who joined me to share some of her client success stories, which are truly inspiring. Take a listen. Here again is a personal trainer, Christine Boyer-Zazzaro. Christine is a certified personal trainer and trains both individual and group clients. So welcome back to the podcast, Christine.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be back.
Since the topic this week is motivation, I kind of just wanted to throw this out to you since you've been training a number of type of clients from various age groups. I think last week you said you had a 12-year-old client and you contrasted that with the 87-year-old client who had just taken a trip from Florida. But I wanted you to share, some of the success stories that you've seen over your years of training in terms of, people that might not have exercised before or, potentially, situations where maybe they weren't able to run very far and they, turn that into something, that was quite an achievement. So I'm going to just kind of throw this to you to talk about, kind of some of your prouder moments as a personal trainer, because I got to imagine that it's really rewarding when you see stuff like that.
Basically, most of my clients when they first come to me, I always ask them, what are your goals? And they're usually the same type of goals. Want to get in shape, want to lose weight, the basic, want to have more muscle tone, the basic generic type of goals. But when I get to know them better, then we dig deeper and we find out, what do they really want to accomplish? And I've actually had clients develop goals as we went along, realizing perhaps they weren't good at balance. So I would, test their balance. One of my favorite things to do once we know that they have some balance is to put them on the BOSU, which is that blue half dome. If you've ever seen
I know
that.
the BOSU. I hate the BOSU.
Oh, I love the BOSU. It's a great tool. There's so many great fun things you can do on it. And I've had several clients that hated it too, but now they've developed more of a friendship with it. And I'll put them on the BOSU, and the mound side is actually more challenging than the flat side. So when you stand on the mound side, a lot of times what happens is for the first time, I put them up against a column and they'll hold it, and I tell them to let go and just kind of move their feet around. But I don't know if you've ever seen this or it happened to you when you first got in the BOSU, but their legs start to shake uncontrollably. And it's their brain is sending signals to their legs to try to find the balance. And it's so mind-boggling to them, like, why can't my legs stop shaking? But what's fun to see after numerous times of going on and off this BOSU over the course of training sessions, they can get on it and they no longer shake. They develop a sense of balance, proprioception. They're able to do step-ups on it. And it's amazing how that can become such a simple goal. When they realized when they first got on it, it was hard for them to balance. I have so many fun things to share. I mean, I have jump roping stories. I have a client she's actually going to turn 80 in June. And she, about 10 years ago, she said, I'm going to try to jump rope because we have a jump rope hanging up in the gym. And I said, let's go for it. Let's do it. So she started a jump rope and her arms were like just flying all over, and she was double jumping. So she would like jump and then double skip. And I said, you need to, let's stop again. Let's go through the motions nice and slow. Well, now she's a unbelievable jump roper. I would challenge her to any 15-year-old teenager. She can jump rope like 2 minutes without missing. So that's like
It's
a
a cool
great.
thing too. Jump rope, when people are in rhythm and they just do, you see like the boxers doing the rhythm with the jump rope. It's awesome to watch. So cool.
One of my favorite but worst jump rope stories is I had a client. This is a few years ago, and he just started jump roping as well, and he couldn't get. I say, okay, let's make 50 rotations your goal. Let's see if you can jump 50 times without missing. And he just couldn't do it. So I said, okay, if you can get to 75, I'll give you a free training session. This training session is on me. What do you think he did? He got to
75.
75 without missing. I was like, you know what? It's amazing what motivates people. So it's just, it's just so fun to see people find something that they didn't necessarily come to train for me for initially, but then all of a sudden enjoy the benefits of it. Performing a plank. I always say, okay, our goal is going to be 1 minute, but we're going to first shoot for 30 seconds. And I can't tell you how many clients are just thrilled when they can make that 1 minute plank, and then we add different variations to it after that. But that in itself is, it's just such an accomplishment. And you can see that they feel great that they were able to do something that was a bit of a challenge.
Now, when we're done with this recording, I'm going to get the Bosu and I'm going to stand on the round side and see if my legs shake. Maybe I need to make friends with the Bosu. And since we talked so much last week about balance, I did like the 1 minute, balance on each foot. I think my balance is pretty good, but the Bosu ball is a bit of a challenge. So that's something to pull back out. How about, you see all these workouts, especially like after New Year's, couch potato to 5K. Do you have any sort of couch potato to whatever, length? It doesn't have to be 5K. It could be a mile. It could be longer. It could be somebody who like decided, this is so much fun, I'm going to run a marathon.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of my favorite stories is he wasn't a couch potato, but he had just retired. I had an executive. He was a chief financial officer for a multi-billion-dollar company, and he retired fairly young, in his 50s, and had never been to a gym before. Would dabble in running, but was overweight. Spent most of his time, sitting at a desk and a computer. I mean, chief financial officer, you're dealing with numbers, and it was a publicly traded company. So his wife, upon her encouragement, got him to finally come to the gym to see me. And he was a little, apprehensive at first, but he started getting a little more comfortable. And I have to tell you, initially, his wife was stronger than he was. I mean, now, he can just blow her away, but, this is years later. But he became so much stronger and in more physical shape, had more energy, increased his distance and time on the elliptical. His overall fitness just went from like 0 to 100%. I mean, just incredible. And to this day, he has been such a gym rat. And he said, you know what? It really saved him after retirement, because he said mentally, I don't know what I would have done. And so that's a great story. I've also had people come to me when you talk about running. Their goal is, listen, I want to be able to run a mile. I struggle, with being out, going outside and running, but I really, that's my goal. So I had one woman that we got to a mile, and the next thing you know, she's like running a 5K with a girlfriend. And then the next thing I know, she's progressing, and she actually ran her first half marathon last year, and she's running one at the end of this month.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and it's just it's so nice to see this. I mean, I can't tell you how rewarding it is to see people accomplish sometimes goals that exceed their expectations. They started off realistically, and they were able to accomplish tremendous amount of satisfaction with their own, with their performance. That's something that was a challenge.
Yeah, I love those stories. And in my own, in running. I mean, I've run, for a lot of years. But I think, like you said, I think when, I started, I was just kind of like, I'm gonna run for exercise. And then, I kind of, got the endurance, and then I got a little faster. And then your brain kicks in, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? Let's run a 5K. Let's run a 10K. Let's run a half marathon. I'm not running a full marathon, but I guess if I put my mind to it, I could. But in any case, yeah, those stories to me are amazing, and it's a big reason. The executive, for example, who retired. It's a big reason why I believe so much in the power of exercise, and why people like you who are pulling seemingly these people who come to you who recognize, like, I want to do something better for myself, and they come to you and like transform. It's incredible. I love that. I love that about just the power of exercise.
Yes, absolutely. And it's nice to see them exceed their expectations of their fitness goals. And there's so many great stories. And there's actually, I've had clients that couldn't even get on and off the floor. I mean, that in itself, we worked at slowly getting down with the bench, worked their way down, got into the mat. I was able to do different exercises with them, and then slowly got them up. And now they can just get right down and get back up. And we sometimes take these things for granted.
To your point, like, I have the ability to go run. I have the ability, if I can do a 1-minute plank, I can do all these things. But like you said, we take it for granted. When you can't do those things, like I was injured last year for 3 months. I was rehabbing, shoulder, clavicle, cycling injury. It was brutal. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift my arm above my, the middle of my body. And that's when I think I really appreciated all of the work that was going into what I was doing for myself.
I feel like I'm preaching the Bible of fitness. But I believe it, I breathe it, I live it, I see it. I mean, to see people walk into a gym for the first time and then end up, seeing them for the next 10, 15 years is just such a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's a lifestyle.
It really is. Christine, thank you again for taking the time. I know you're extremely busy, but I appreciate the conversations that we have every week, and hopefully we'll continue to have you back on. So thanks again.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to see you. Have a great weekend.
With that, episode 4 of the HIITN’50 podcast comes to a close. Thank you so much for listening. I have so much fun putting these together each week, and I'm truly grateful to all of my fantastic guests. We'll be back with you next week, and until then, stay healthy, everyone. Bye-bye.